Shravanam Diaries podcast.
Hare Krishna, we are continuing to read Bhagavad Gita as it is, the book by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, text 30. Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashaha yah pashyati tathatmanam akartaram sapashyati. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Purport. This body is made by material nature, under the direction of the Super Soul, and whatever activities are going on in respect to one's body are not his doing. Whatever one is supposed to do, either for happiness or for distress, one is forced to do because of the bodily constitution. The self, however, is outside all these bodily activities. This body is given according to one's past desires. To fulfill desires, one is given the body, with which he acts accordingly. Practically speaking, the body is a machine designed by the Supreme Lord to fulfill desires. Because of desires, one is put into difficult circumstances to suffer or to enjoy. This transcendental vision of the living entity, when developed, makes one separate from bodily activities. One who has such a vision is an actual seer. Such a deep, very, very deep topic this is. Text 31. Yada bhuta prithak bhavam ekastham anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadyate tada. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Purport. When one can see that the various bodies of living entities arise due to the different desires of the individual soul and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. In the material conception of life, we find someone a demigod, someone a human being, a dog, a cat, etc. This is material vision, not actual vision. This material differentiation is due to a material conception of life. After the destruction of the material body, the spirit soul is one. The spirit soul, due to contact with material nature, gets different types of bodies. When one can see this, he attains spiritual vision, thus being freed from differentiations like man, animal, big, low, etc. One becomes purified in his consciousness and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse. Text 32. Anaditvan nirgunatvat paramatmayamavyaya sharirasthopi kaunteya nakaroti nalipyate. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. Jai. Purport. This is a wonderful thing to consider, isn't it? Sometimes I'll honestly tell you, a couple of years back, I seriously considered myself to be so entangled in like a situation that I was seeing no way out, you know? But this chapter particularly really helped me. And this particular verse, now that I'm reading, it's just such an important thing for us to understand. The soul neither does anything nor is entangled, despite contact with the material body. So we speak about it all the time. I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul. But do we really understand what does it mean that we are the spirit soul? So this chapter really explains what does it mean to be a soul. Okay, let's read the purport. A living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body. But actually the living entity is eternal. He is not born. And in spite of his being situated in a material body, he is transcendental and eternal. Thus he cannot be destroyed. By nature he is full of bliss. Full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore the activities performed due to his contact with material bodies do not entangle him. Text 33. Yatha sarvagatam saukshmyad akasham nopalipyate sarvatra vasthito dehe tathatma nopalipyate. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. The sky. What is the sky? Ether. Akash. That's how we get Wi-Fi. That's how we get TV. That's how we get radio. Doesn't mix with anything. It's not like you're watching Mahabharata on Star Plus and then suddenly this another series about Ramayana mixes in. Oh no, it happens, Akash, it's ether. It's like what to do? No, ether doesn't mix with anything, although it's all pervading. So similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Purport. The air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it's impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. It's impossible to see with material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. It's interesting. If you listen to OBGYNs and to pediatricians, when they speak about Hare Krishna, like such cases of, say, miscarriages or like other type, like even though it's their field, they don't know why it happens. And some very reputed doctors, they were saying that, we don't know. Like, I was just watching some educational video. So modern science, there are many things that science can do, and it's amazing. They've been able to engage themselves in studying material laws to such extent. Many things are wonderful, but when it comes to this, when it comes to the closer you get to spirit, soul, and I would say that, like, if you study Ayurveda, how it talks in such details as well about how the jiva comes and descends, and it's up to the jiva sometimes to remain in the womb and everything. So Ayurveda, because it's a vidya which is connected to the Supreme Lord, it talks about such things. So science will actually be able to reach its full potential when they will turn their faith towards this knowledge and acknowledge the fact that you can't just see it with your material eyes, right? So, text 34. Yatha prakashyayatyeikah kritsnam lokamimam ravi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity. One within the body illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Purport. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, right? In one place, illuminating the whole universe. So a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus, consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, Consciousness is not a product of the combinations of matter. It is the symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the Supersoul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. So this is something that we can also take away from, we can take so many things from this chapter, but this is something I would like to remember as well, specifically. That you are conscious of your own body, but you are not conscious of other bodies. Sometimes it says that, my mom, I would say this example, because my mom, she, when I became a teenager and elder, I had disagreements with my mom regarding the fact of being conscious of my own body and mind and feelings. Because my mom, she would be like, as a mother, I know how you feel. I know it. And I was thinking that, Mom, I don't think you do. And she was giving the example that, when you were a baby, I could know that you're hungry, now you're like uncomfortable, now you're in pain and this and that. And at that time, I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. Thanks, Mom, really. I deeply appreciate it. But at the same time, as the child grows up and as we, there are different levels of being conscious of somebody else's body, right? So we're not super souls. We may have no idea what is going on in the heart and in the life of another person. We may have some idea. Some people, they are good at, being sensitive about it, and they know how to read the eyes or the body language. There are different levels of people who understand how to be like conscious of another person in a good way, considerate. But ultimately, we can only know so much. But Krishna, he is a Paramatma, as the super soul. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows exactly. He is conscious of all the bodies simultaneously. So in real time, he knows what's going on with everybody. And he is acting in the best interest of everybody all the time. Now, imagine that. We are definitely not supreme. It's crazy to consider that me and the super soul, we're one. No, not at all. So this, actually, if you come to think of it, like if you really deeply think about it, how in real time, Krishna, he knows exactly how each person feels and how each person thinks, what's going on with him actually, So then, and then sometimes, Krishna, he, especially for his devotees, he creates certain situations, and then other people may not understand why exactly this way. But then you ask this devotee personally, you ask like, what happened? And then he will tell you, and you will realize, wow, Krishna arranged everything just for you. He arranged everything. And then it's a greater miracle when there's a group of devotees, and with a single event, every devotee's like aspirations or desires or answers, they get answers, they get what they were praying for, what they were asking for. It's really Amazing. It's really amazing. That's why he is the Supreme Lord. He can do such things. Text 35. Kshetra kshetragyayorevam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye viduryanti te param. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal. Purport. The purport to this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the super soul. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in verses 8 through 12. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. So this is for us. This chapter is for us. If we want to go to the supreme destination, we have to know this difference. We have to know. I'm just trying not to minimize, sometimes I had, at least before, this understanding that Bhagavad Gita, yes, first to 6 chapters, Karma Yoga, it's not for me. This maybe 7th to 12th chapters, devotional service, that's what I do, right? That's what I need. And then 13th to 18th chapters is Jnana Yoga. We're not Jnanis and this and that. But here it says Jnana Chakshu. We have to be acquainted with this. It's one thing when some people, they are like, that Brahmin who was crying, embracing Bhagavad Gita, and he was illiterate. And he couldn't read, but he was crying, and he had such pure devotion. Understandable. He is like Lord Chaitanya, he recognized him. It's one thing. But when we are like fully illiterate and we are studying, we're supposed to study Bhagavad Gita, we're supposed to make time to study Bhagavad Gita, we're supposed to make time to contemplate and really try to understand Bhagavad Gita. When we don't take advantage and we don't take opportunity at trying to deeply study, that's I don't find it appropriate. That's all. At least for myself. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not bullying anybody. Okay. One should recognize the process of liberation as in verses 8 through 12. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God, and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. The body is the gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interaction of these features. But over and above this, there's the soul, and there is also the super soul. The soul and the super soul are two. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and material elements, and can also see the situation of the Supreme Soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. So we should have complete understanding. It says here, Prabhupada says, we're meant to contemplate, realize, and have complete understanding of this chapter. I would say that in my neophyte understanding, I would think that this whole world is just Krishna. And whatever happens in my life, in my mind, in my heart, in my, whatever I do, everything is actually controlled by Krishna. So it's Krishna's fault. It's Krishna's doings. And I'm just chanting Hare Krishna, and that's it. But it's not exactly a very mature understanding, because if something would go wrong, say within the 24 material elements, then suddenly I would not be able to actually see Krishna anymore and love Krishna, because why did Krishna do this? Why did Krishna do that? But it's a very, very immature understanding, I would say. A mature way to look at it is how Prabhupada describes it here, that you are the owner of the field. That's how Srila Prabhupada calls you. You are the owner of your field. So first of all, take that ownership and take that responsibility. Secondly, there are 24 material elements that are comprising, or how do you call it? That are combining to create your material body. And you can analyze it within the 24 elements. There's gross manifestation, there are subtle manifestations. All these can be analyzed, can be studied. And there is the super soul, who is the witness, who is the overseer, who is giving sanction. There's you. That's a mature way to look at it. Actually, I just remembered, this is exactly, we're going back to that beautiful graphic showed by Premanjana Prabhu at the BCE, where he was saying that material nature, the Lord, and the living entity, right? All of them are doing something, but material nature and the Lord are neutral actors, and you are the active doer. And what do we do? Remember, we just read in the previous verses, we desire. That's what we do. We desire. And then the mechanism of the body takes place. Jai. Wonderful, beautiful chapter. So we shall conclude here for today, and tomorrow we shall begin chapter 14, the 3 modes of material nature. I don't know, for me personally, I love the first 6 chapters as they're beautiful, they're wonderful. Middle 6, they're great. But the later 6 chapters, for me, it's like reading them is almost like sense enjoyment. For it's like I really enjoy reading these chapters. Like I just, like this categorization and like creating like categories, putting everything in boxes, analyzing. This is just my personal celebration to read these. All right, so tomorrow, 3 modes of material nature. Haribol. Thank you so much for tuning in today. The book links, previous episodes timeline, and biography of the author can be found on shravanamdiaries.com. The link is in the description, and we shall see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.